Well, it is 22 past 12. Well, there's been quite a bit of talk about the promise of blockchain and QR barcodes helping agriculture, particularly when it comes to things like export traceability. But the recipient of a new Churchill Fellowship says he thinks sometimes there's too much emphasis on cutting-edge technologies and that farmers are more likely to take up simple technology upgrades. Peter Carter from GS1 Australia says he wants to investigate how simple advancements could help agricultural exports.
Things like product identifiers and having a consistent language so that producers, when coordinating supply chain movement of goods with their transport agents and processors, are actually simply just using the same vocabulary and similar messaging systems. And even if you take a product like eggs in Australia, I go to the supermarket and I notice that they're all stamped, but it's very difficult for a consumer to actually find out what that stamp means. So there's some really simple things that we can do, and there are some case studies abroad. And so my goal is to not overcomplicate things, just focus on simple production stories, and hopefully bring back a few examples of good practice.
As I imagine too, part of this would be the adoption rate, and if you're asking a farmer or a producer to do something, like you mentioned blockchain, there's been a lot of talk about that, but it's still it's complicated in its nature. So how people could take that up easily is a challenge.
And I think this is the point: is that technology and innovation moves in waves, and typically, to change practices in industry is not done in a matter of months or years. Building consensus and understanding and alignment in different segments of the value chain takes quite a long time. And we find that there is a sort of a mosaic of technologies being used in different ways, and it's developing at different speeds and rates. So I think there's a real sense across a number of different industries in Australia that whilst we're very excited about the future and we can see that digital systems are going to play a big part in that future, there's a real need to slow down a little and take everybody on that journey.
So potentially there's still a bit of low-hanging fruit that we could get to before we maybe look at the next step.
Oh, look, I'd say a lot. It's funny, we tend to think about innovation needing to be transformative and disruptive. And in most cases, some of the best innovation is really about the consistent application of methods that work well. And I think through the Churchill Fellowship is that certainly the guidance that I've been getting from a quite extraordinary network and organisation of people who've done similar sorts of research is their guidance and advice is just focused on the simple parts. So what I'm doing is I'm focusing on 4 primary industries. So I'm focusing on red meat, eggs, citrus and wine. And I'm touching base with a number of the key industry bodies in each of those areas. One of the fortunate things about working with the organisation that I'm GS1 is that they have a very extensive global network of member organisations and partners. So one of the things I will hope to do is to leverage that network. So we've got country offices in all of the locations that I'm planning on visiting.
That's Peter Carter from GS1 Australia.